we're dedicating this conversation to really discuss anti-Semitism, diving a little bit more deeper into what it looks like today and how to fix it, hopefully, using technology and other avenues. So please enjoy, and with that, I am going to introduce Jacki Alexander from HonestReporting to take it away. Thanks, Jacki.
This is yours. Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning. As Karen mentioned, I'm Jacki Alexander, CEO of HonestReporting, and I'm honored to be joined today by our two panelists. Karys Rhea is a political commentator and former producer at the Epoch Times and Newsmax. She's currently writing a book about how right-wing identitarianism is undermining President Trump's vision, fracturing MAGA, and jeopardizing the soul of America. Adam Milstein is a venture philanthropist, business investor, and community leader who is innovating how philanthropy can more effectively fight hate, anti-Semitism, and bigotry on college campuses and beyond. Karys, let's start with you. Can you set the stage for us and tell us what you're working on?
Sure. Well, it's an honor to be here at IAC, and especially to be on the stage with you, Adam, who I've been following your work since I was in college so many years ago. So it's great to be on stage with you. So, as Jacki mentioned, I'm currently writing a book about the rise of right-wing identitarianism, which includes anti-Semitism. I spent about 2 decades fighting anti-Semitism on the left and within Islamist spaces. We've all heard of the Red-Green Alliance. But I ended up seeing something very sinister brewing within my own camp as a MAGA conservative starting in around 2022. Started writing about this a bit, speaking about it, and I left my job in August at Epoch, and I am now full-time, every working minute, fighting anti-Semitism on the right. I think that moderate and conservative Jews are very underprepared for this fight. I think that we believe that this is merely an online phenomena. I think that we believe that Qatar is paying for all of this. We've heard the names Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Nick Fuentes, but that's pretty much it. And I think that we reassure ourselves with polling that this is not affecting the majority of mainstream conservatives. Well, we have probably heard the expression that it only takes 10% of the population to start a revolution. What percentage of a political party do you think it takes to change a political party? Much, much less than that. And politics is downstream from culture, and the culture is shifting massively. So we need to really start understanding the different elements of this in order to combat it.
Thank you, and I look forward to diving into that a little more with you. Adam, your focus isn't on defining the problem, but in working on innovative solutions. Can you tell us about how you're doing that?
Thanks, Jacki. Sure. I'm very happy we don't have too many people here because I am the bearer of bad news about anti-Semitism. As somebody that has been in the trenches for the last 25 years, I can see where we're going, and it's not in a good direction. I think just as a matter of reference, about 10 years ago, I already announced to the world that anti-Semitism is coming from the Islamo-Leftist Alliance, where all the Jewish community was focused on neo-Nazis, only neo-Nazis. And when I said it, that it is the Muslims and it's the leftists that are promoting anti-Semitism in the United States, and it's very dangerous, I was called an alarmist. They blame me for bringing anti-Semitism to the United States, because if I don't speak about it, it will not be here. So, in any event, anti-Semitism is the oldest hatred in the world. The moment there was a Jew, there was Jew hatred, and until there is no more Jews, anti-Semitism will continue. So there's no way to defeat anti-Semitism. We are the scapegoat of the world. Any victim in the world, we are to be blamed. So since we cannot defeat it, let's look at how can we mitigate anti-Semitism, how can we deal with anti-Semitism. To do that, let's first of all look who are the anti-Semitic movements in the United States. And briefly, we have the radical Muslims who are not tolerating any other religion, especially the Jews, because we, according to them, are also occupying Islamic land in Israel. So they hate us, they hate all the Christians, and they want to bring Islam to the United States, Sharia law. They want to destroy the United States. There is also the radical left, who is really united with radical Islam for the last 50 years in fighting America all over the world. And they enable radical Muslims to enter our educational institutions, our media, our corporate, and now we have anti-Semitism promoted by both of them all over. They are called the Islamo-Leftist Alliance, and they are the most dangerous anti-Semites I think in the world. Then we have the neo-Nazis, the Nick Puentes of the world, the white supremacists. They're not very powerful. They can take a weapon and kill. And now, as Karys said, we have the woke right, the Tucker Carlsons of the world. They claim that they are isolationists. They think America only. They believe in America only, not America first. But they're all, as we can find out, they're all paid mouthpiece of Qatar and others. They're really not interested in isolation, where they are promoting the interest of Qatar and Iran and Turkey. Now, if we want to see what we can do with those 8 movements, we need to pay attention. They are all anti-American. Each one of them want to destroy or change America forever. And this very important point is, I think, how we can fight against it. So my plan to fighting anti-Semitism, let me know, Jacki, if I'm exceeding my time. 1 minute or 2, it's good. So I think, first of all, we need to make it an American problem, a Western civilization problem. We have no ability to do anything as Jews. We are a very small number. We are split. Even if we are together, we're small, but we're split. Every 2 Jews, 5 opinions. We don't have the guts to do anything. We don't have the guts. We want somebody else to guard us. We want the police. We want the legislator. Everybody tell me, Adam, I have too much to lose. You can fight. You can do whatever you like. Very nice. I can't do it. I'm going to lose my business. I'm going to lose my family. Not willing to fight. So if you want to fight anti-Semitism, we need to make America understand it's an American problem, and we need to join them. We cannot lead America. We need to join Americans in the fight against anti-Semitism. We need to invest in intelligence to understand who are the anti-Semites, who is funding them, what's their plans, who are the leaders. And then once we have that, we can define who is an enemy we can attack. Obviously, we're not going to go against, Islamo-leftists in the United States. It's too big. We need to define very specific organization, individuals, actions that we can fight against. And for example, when we talk about Islamo-leftists, it's clear that Qatar is behind all that. So we need to focus on Qatar, Muslim Brotherhood, CARE in the United States. When we talk about radical left, we need to focus on the Democratic Socialists of America, which are not Democrats. They're just socialist Marxists that are using democratic means to take over the Democratic Party. Mamdani is the Democratic Socialist of America. So we need to focus on DSA. We need to focus on other radical movement, anarchist movements, People's City Council, the PP Forum, a lot of organizations that are being sponsored by China and by Marxist billionaires. And once we have all this information, we need to empower and mobilize an ecosystem of many organizations that we can incentivize them to work together, to share, and to fight against our common enemies. We need to invest in pro-Israel organizations, and we need to invest in pro-American organizations. I'll speak about it later.
Yep, great point. You mentioned the DSA and the Islamo-leftists and all that, and I think all of us have seen since October 7th what anti-Semitism looks like on the left and how it impacts us. But anti-Semitism on the right, or the woke right, is something that is new to a lot of people. And you mentioned Tucker and you mentioned Nick Fuentes, but your hypothesis is that this goes even beyond Israel, and that's informed by some of the conversations you've been having on the ground. So we're going to have about 4 questions back and forth for the next couple of minutes, give you about 2 minutes to answer each, so that then we can go into the audience and have you guys ask some questions as well before we're done. So can you tell us about the conversations you're having on the ground?
Sure. So contrary to what J.D. Vance might tell you, this is not just an online phenomenon. That dichotomy between real life and online is completely superficial. As Jacki mentioned, I'm writing a book, and I've spoken to over 100 Christian conservatives at this point on the ground, and they are telling me that they are seeing this in their churches, in their conservative communities, not necessarily from their pastors or priests, but from their peers. And I think that we need to accept that there is a radicalism brewing, a growing anti-Semitism, misogyny, fascism. I hate using these words, but it's really true that this is brewing in the culture on the right. It is in the churches, it is in the Young Republicans clubs, it is in the halls of Congress, it is in the independent right-wing media. And we need to understand how we got to this moment. We need to understand how the pandemic made us much more susceptible to conspiratorialism. We need to understand the neo-reactionary impulses of young men who have been told for a decade that they are toxic and racist just for being white and male, and what that does to them psychologically, and the backlash that then ensues. We need to understand what happened when Elon Musk freed X, or Twitter, which I think was a good thing, but the repercussions of that, and how somebody like Andrew Torba, which is a name everybody should know, basically took everybody off of Gab and 4chan and heralded them into the X space, and now it's been a cesspool of just unbelievable right-wing radicalism. We need to start understanding names like Curtis Yarvin and Stephen Wolfe and Nick Land and Alexander Dugan, and how people like this are providing the intellectual foundation for grassroots movements to be empowered and mainstream, movements like Groyperism. We need to understand the phenomenon of post-liberalism within the right-wing space, and how post-liberalism serves as a gateway drug to a lot of this extremism that we're seeing on the right, even though it's couched in very sophisticated rhetoric. We need to understand the paleo-conservative and libertarian spaces, and how starting in the 90s, Russia, post-Cold War Russia, really infiltrated these groups in America and made them much more inclined towards anti-Semitic and, as you guys mentioned, anti-American impulses. Groups like the LaRouche movement and the British Israelites, and the residual effects that these groups have had on conservatives today, especially in an era of populism. So, like I said, I think we are underprepared, but all is not lost, and there's plenty of opportunity here to get in this fight. I think more important than anything is working with our Christian allies. They are the ones that are going to move the needle on right-wing anti-Semitism, not us Jews. So, we might be very comfortable in our Florida bubbles here, but I think it's very important that for every Jewish or pro-Israel organization that we are involved with, we get involved with one Christian Zionist organization, because there are a lot of them that understand this much better than many of us Jews do. And we should be working together to fight it.
And working together is what you're focused on, Adam. You are focused on empowering and mobilizing and facilitating nonprofits to attack this together. So how do you do that? How do you encourage them to collaborate on fighting anti-Semitism?
Thanks. So when I identified the anti-Semitic movements in the United States, I said, let's focus on how each one of them is anti-American, because that's the solution. So we know radical Muslims, they want to take over America. They want to institute Sharia law in the United States. They are the enemy of everybody else in the United States, all the different Americans, minorities, religious groups, family groups. Can you imagine the United States operating like Iran, with women covered from head to toe? That's going to happen when Islam take over the United States, and they have a very specific program to do it. And unfortunately, they are succeeding pretty well, and I'll mention how. And if we look at the radical left, they don't believe in God, they don't believe in family, they are the enemies of the American way of life, and we need to really highlight this to the United States. The Democratic Socialists of America, it's a very sophisticated Trojan horse that is being used to take over the Democratic Party. What happened in New York, what's happening in other places, they pick up a Democratic district with where the percentage of people coming to the primaries is pretty low, and they promote their candidate as a Democrat, even though Mamdani and others are not Democrats. They are able to bring the vote, bring the voters, get Mamdani and others to be elected in the primaries, and then they're running on the Democratic ticket, and now is the mayor of New York. This is their plan for all the United States, and they're accomplishing it in many places. We already have few DSA members in the Congress, right? We have Ilan Omar, we have Rashida Tlaib, we have AOC. AOC is the leader. We need to indicate that DSA is taking over the Democratic Party in order to destroy the Democratic Party and then to destroy America. So how do we fight against all that? Once it's known that it's anti-American, we need to work with groups that care about children education, that care about families' values, care about the future of America, and we need to provide them with the intelligence that we have to understand who is the enemy, and we need to support them, and we need to join them. Jews are not going to lead this fight for the future of America. We need to understand our role, and we need to think as American, and we need to fight as American. How do I do all this? As I said, intelligence is priority number one. We need to understand who is the enemy. We can't do anything if we have no idea who is the enemy and what the enemy is planning. Once we have the intelligence, what Gila sitting here and I in Milstein Family Foundation, we support two ecosystems. Many organizations, many nonprofit in each one of them. There is the pro-Israel, the one that fights anti-Semitism as Jews, and we support close to 100 organizations in that ecosystem, and there is the ecosystem of the pro-American organization that has nothing to do with Jews, and they want to fight for America. What we do, we identify the good ones, the ones that are willing to collaborate with others, the ones that have open ears to hear our ideas, and we fund them. Some of them we fund big amounts, some of them we fund small amount, but even a small amount open the doors. They're listening to donors. They don't want to listen to dogs or barking outside. But once you're a donor, they're listening to you. So we share information, we give them ideas, we make connections how they can fight back together. We connect the pro-Israel organization with the pro-American organizations, and as we know, there is no silver bullet, and we are really mobilizing and empower many groups to work together for the future of America.
So what you two have described has been essentially a red-green alliance, right? The red of the left and the green of Hamas. Is what you've seen on the ground as you're interviewing all these conservatives, does right-wing anti-Semitism look the same way that left-wing anti-Semitism does? And as a corollary to that, what's the most effective way to push back in terms of language? We're doing great on time, but let's see if we can rapid fire the next two questions, please.
Okay, sure. Yeah, what you're describing is known as the horseshoe theory, which posits that the political spectrum is not so much a straight line as it is a horseshoe. So the more extreme you get on the right or the left, you actually loop back around and you tend in the same direction. That's why people have noticed that the woke right mirrors the woke left, because it's a victim-based grievance movement of identity politics in which there is a hierarchy of power dynamics and those that are more aggrieved victims and those that are the oppressors and the oppressed. And that said, there are important nuances, and that is why the political spectrum is not actually a circle, it is a horseshoe. Because though you may find that they parallel each other and they'll even join forces, which is now what we're seeing with like AOC and Thomas Massie or Tlaib or Code Pink and Marjorie Taylor Greene or Tucker Carlson and Anna Kasparian, there are important nuanced differences that are fundamental. Yes, right-wing anti-Semitism has all of the same anti-Israel rhetoric. Israel is committing genocide, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, but there is also something much more sinister than that, which goes deep into theology. And as we know, right-wingers don't couch their language in social justice or human rights, so it's much more explicit. And so we are seeing things like the deicide charge of the Jews killing Christ be resurrected, and what is known as replacement theology or euphemistic apocalyptically termed fulfillment theology by a lot of these Reformed pastors. And it's very sinister, so we really have our work cut out for us. We need to be armed not just with how to respond to charges of genocide and apartheid, but we need to learn about the USS Liberty and why Jews are not responsible for starting the Iraq War, and learn about perverted, distorted quotes taken out of context in the Talmud, right? So, we basically have twice as much work we need to do because we're fighting in an environment in which the information ecosystem is so overwhelming that it needs to be mapped out and fought on all fronts, just like we did with the left, mapping out the funding structures and the NGOs and tackling it through lawfare and policy and culture. We need to do the same thing here. We need to understand how not so good people like George O'Neill and Charles Haywood, and ostensibly good people like Peter Thiel, a pro-Israel Christian, the roles that they are playing in funding this. And we need to hold people like J.D. Vance to the fire and demand to know whether he, if he is the nominee, is going to govern in the legacy of Donald J. Trump, or whether he is going to govern in the image of those who he is most loyal to, which is Peter Thiel, Don Jr., and Tucker Carlson, without which he would not have even been senator, let alone the vice president.
So you mentioned, I think you hit the right tone there. Adam, you mentioned how you selected what nonprofits to support, but how do you go about identifying holes where the nonprofits are not necessarily fighting anti-Semitism the way that they should be, and then helping facilitate for them to start doing so?
Great, thanks. First of all, I just want to cover the fact that, over 10 years ago, we have seen radical leftists starting to star in the Democratic Party. At that time, all the Democrats assured us that they are a very small minority, very marginal, very fringe, nothing's going to happen from them. But right now, they are controlling the Democratic Party. And if the Democratic Party wins the Congress later on this year, there will be no pro-Israel resolution passed in the Congress, because once you have a minority, 10, 20 congressmen that are anti-Israel, that are DSA in the Congress, they will control the speaker, and they will make sure that there is no pro-Israel agenda bringing to vote. The same thing is now, as Karys says, happening on the right. The same way that the radical left destroyed the Democratic Party and it's no longer pro-Israel, we see on the right with the Tucker Carlson of the world splitting the conservative movements. I don't know if you guys have watched what happened with the Heritage Foundation, one of the oldest, biggest conservative think tanks in the United States. And the president of the Heritage, Kevin Roberts, came out and says, Tucker is my friend, he's entitled to free speech, he has some good ideas. And the moment he said it, the Heritage Foundation, with a budget of $100 million, started to disintegrate. So far, about 5 board members resigned. A lot of scholars moved to other conservative think tanks. This is really, I think, the litmus test of the conservative movements. If we will allow the Tucker of the world to control the agenda, it will destroy the conservative movement the same way that the radical left destroyed the Democratic Party. This is the essence of the future of America. We need to emphasize it. We need to educate other people, because if the conservative movement is going to go as well, I think we have no future in America. America doesn't have any future. Now, being in the trenches and supporting so many organizations, we can identify which organizations are good, very good, know what they're doing, which need some directions, and what gaps we have that we should fill. So over the last 20 years, Gila and I were behind funding a lot of organizations, including the IAC. We were the founders, co-founders of the IAC in 2006. It was 3 people that are here today that were in the original founding members. And I've seen that, we don't have Israelis. We were already a philanthropist in 2005, 2006. We couldn't find any Israelis any place in any of the group that were fighting anti-Semitism. So when we founded the ISC, and each one had different ideas, my idea was I want to bring Israelis to fight for Israel. I want to bring Israelis to become philanthropists. And this is the reason I joined the board then and really hope that other people will come just like us. Doesn't really happen. I guess we're different. But that was the goal. So in a similar way, we have founded many organizations over the last 20 years. Some of them became completely independent, like the IC, and were not associated with them. But if you look at fighting anti-Semitism here in the United States, and who are the major organizations that are the spearhead of fighting anti-Semitism, I can tell you that we had something to do with their foundation. So we always identify the good one that doesn't need any advice from us. Just give us a contribution, like AIPAC, phenomenal organization. They will not take any advice from me, but I think they're doing a phenomenal job. So we support AIPAC, no questions asked. Stand with us, excellent organization. There are organizations that are in the medium size, that, between 1 and 10 million, and they'll take advice, they'll take intelligence, they'll share they'll do things with others, and we support them. And we identify gaps, and we fill up the gaps, and we identify very, organizations just starting, and we'll put them on the map. So this is, I think, was the secret of us mobilizing and empowering so many projects, so many organizations.
And as the recipient of one of those for Honest Reporting, we've been the recipient not only of your generous funding, but also of helping facilitate connections with other organizations. And I can tell you that it is one of the most powerful things that Adam and Gila do, as well as the Milstein Family Foundation led by Elena Yaakov. It is absolutely critical to helping smaller and middle-sized organizations be much more effective at what they're doing. So thank you for that. I know I promised questions from the one, just because you had your hand up already. And then we're going to go to N.
I agree with the analysis, but I want to add a little bit of nuance. This is what I study. And in fact, what we discovered is the horseshoe phenomenon, that the left and the right, the extremes, are coming together in their hatred of Jews and Israel. What we find when we study campuses and the environment of faculty and students is that right-wing anti-Semites frame it in terms of the traditional hatred, religion-based, of Jews, too powerful, race, etc. And the left doesn't touch Jews, but it's all about Israel, denying its right to exist.
Sir, I'm sorry. Just if you have a question, if not, we only have 3 more minutes. There's another panel counting on.
Like how we've successfully dealt with cancer, we have to realize the different forms of anti-Semitism. And that's the critical next step, to be really smart, strategic, and then tactical.
Thank you so much.
Can I say something?
Sure.
It's absolutely true what you were saying about right-wing anti-Semitism, and that's where the replacement theology comes in. But I deal with conservatives every day, and I think they are absolutely also using all of the typical anti-Zionist, Soviet-originated arguments that we are seeing on the left as well. And I just wanted to say one thing about language. If we actually want to specifically tackle Jew hatred on the left, then we literally need to relearn how to communicate this issue to America First, MAGA, Trumper conservatives. Do you think that conservatives care that Israel has the biggest gay pride parade in the Middle East, or that Israel respects international law? No, conservatives care that Israelis are having more babies than any other developed country, and that there is a strong religious character and strong national pride, and that masculinity is still valued there. Okay, we should not be arguing when we're fighting against right-wing anti-Semitism for censorship or for content moderation on platforms. We should not be using terms like hate speech or platforming. Okay, we need to be using the language of America First, which most importantly is about how a strong Israel makes a strong America, because an empowered ally that is able to police its own region and fight our mutual enemies allows us to take out of our resources of the Middle East and redirect them towards the Indo-Pacific and be able to focus on our real existential enemy, for which Iran and Russia would not be nearly as big of threats as they are, which is the Chinese Communist Party. And so strengthening Israel strengthens America because it allows us to focus on China.
So, great. And then you want to do 1 minute on positive things that they can live with? You want to do 1 minute on positive things they can live with?
I agree with Karys. You know, it is, as I said, forget about anti-Semitism and people who hate us. We need to think as American, and we need to present the issue as American first, as Karen says. America first, we're here to protect America. And America first means strong Israel and strong America. Now, I want to just speak a little bit about something that Karys touched, which is extremely important, which is the replacement theology. It is existing in the church, in the Christian church. Obviously the different movements, including the evangelicals, that Jews have been replaced as the favorite of God with the Christian church. And it's becoming more and more prevalent, I think, in the right, that we're no longer the chosen people. Actually, we didn't accept Jesus as our Savior, and we are actually cursed, and the church is the blessed. So we see more and more of it, and it's very funny that the radical right think that we are trying to replace them with Muslim immigrants. So when in Charlottesville they were shouting, Jews will not replace us, I don't know what was explained to you, but they were saying that the Jews are bringing Muslim immigrants to replace them. So we're blamed from all kind of replacement theologies, but we need to think as American. American first is the right way to think and to act.
Thank you. We've now laid out how to understand anti-Semitism today, and now please stick around because there's going to be a fascinating discussion on deep fakes, AI, and how anti-Semitism is playing out with technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Karys. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Jacki. This was fascinating.